Meeting come to order. Dr. Versa.
Yes, so welcome board members and staff. Welcome to the July 21st, 2020 regular school board meeting. We do have some items we definitely want to go through with our trustees this evening and some presentations. Prior to doing that, I think virtually we have Ms. Janice Hernandez, who is going to lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiances. And I want to thank those staff members who are here and trustees. That social distancing is definitely in effect, and if you're not speaking and you feel comfortable, ask you to wear your mask as well.
Thank you, Dr. Versa. Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity to come and gather together this day. We ask for your hand of blessing on this meeting. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. Amen. I place the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and protect the flag. Pledge allegiance to the exception, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next thing is recognitions, and I see we have no recognitions. And the next thing is public comments. We have public comments and somebody in charge of that tonight. Jesse, you?
We had three people signed up to provide public comments, and Mr. Jesse Garcia is going to facilitate that process this evening.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry.
The first person that we have giving public comment tonight is Mr. Dave Bojo. Mr. Bojo, are you there, sir?
He'll need to unmute himself if he's on the line.
Bojo, if you're there, can you unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Mr. Dave
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Boggio.
Can you
Hey,
hear
good
us?
evening. Yes,
You'll have 3 minutes, sir, to give your public comments. You may begin now, sir. Thank you.
thank you. Good evening. The focus of my comments this evening concern the deplorable treatment of Dr. Gardner by this district. I served with Dr. Gardner for well over a year and have come to learn much about this remarkable woman, and I shared many of her experiences have led us to this point. The district still is not forthcoming with the reasons for her removal. It has chosen instead to install a new principal that hasn't been in a classroom for 14 years and hasn't served one day as a school administrator. Given the state of the country with COVID-19 and the uncertainty and apprehension of our students and families during this time, do you not think there are serious parent concerns about your judgment in replacing a proven, effective, experienced principal with a wannabe? Feedback from several parents after several meetings with the new principal virtually indicate that they are not impressed. The manner in which you replace Dr. Gardner gives one pause to think about your fitness to run a school district. The more that comes out, the more legitimacy there is to claim that this was an emotional rather than a logical decision made by someone who quite possibly had their feelings hurt or felt threatened by her. There are continued requests by Dr. Gardner by Southwest employees asking for information on various aspects of school operations. Why is this, as you assert, the district wants to go in a different direction? There are also questions raised about retaliation. On at least 2 occasions, Dr. Gardner has been called, quote, a quality person of value, that you are investing in her future at Southwest ISD through reassignment, and you look forward to bringing her talents and expertise to a new district assignment, unquote. If that's the case, you have an odd way of showing how highly you value her abilities. As I understand it, she's being demoted to an assistant principal position in a middle school with an associated substantial cut in pay as well, at a school she has yet to be told where there are currently no vacancies. This cut in pay will jeopardize the safety and security of our family. The family is trying to figure out what things they will have to do without to make ends meet. These are things that the elitists within the district cannot fathom. Could any of you expect to survive on a drastic, unexpected, and short notice pay cut? Because you have not done the things you needed to do, which includes an evaluation during the past 3 years. Her ability to leave the district and seek employment elsewhere has been roadblocked. You drag out her due process regarding her grievances, adding to the stress and uncertainty she and her family face. So she's a quality person of value that you are investing in. How do you explain the despicable treatment of her? It appears that there is an intentional, purposeful effort to punish her for speaking up for her students and her school. She has no write-ups. It is evident that she is being retaliated against. But if she is as valuable to the district, why would that be? Is it for her resolute actions of standing up for what is right, which made people in the district uncomfortable, or for the color of her skin? Your continued travel down this path regarding Dr. Gardner will have more telling consequences come Election Day. Quote a phrase taken from the headlines during this time of national unrest. Southwest ISD, no justice, no peace. Thank you.
We also have Ms. Annette Hairston tonight, giving public comment. Ms. Hairston, are you there, ma'am? Ms. Hairston, can you hear me, ma'am? Ms. Hairston, can you hear me? I'm going to go on to Mr. Nukas and we'll come back to Ms. Hairston. Mr. Nukas, are you there, sir? Can you hear us?
Speakers, please
Yes.
unmute yourselves.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Mr. Nukas, is that you, sir?
That is correct.
All right, sir. You will have 3 minutes, sir, to give your comment. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Good evening, South Board President, members of the board, and Superintendent of Schools. I'm here today to address concerns community members have regarding the board meeting that took place on July 14 of 2020. On July 14, I, as well as many Southwest ISD taxpayers, were trying to get access to the board meeting online or over the phone. For 45 minutes, we tried with no luck. We also video recorded the process to show that we did not have access either online or via phone. At 11:50 a.m. on July 14th, I emailed the administration about the public not having access to the meeting. I received a reply from the administration at 4:22 p.m. the same day. In their response, administration stated the following: the original posted board meeting link was inadvertently deleted by a staff member. What concerns community members the most is that the two items discussed and approved by the school board on July 14th have been effective July 14th, even though the public was denied access to the board meeting. Administration claims the following: the board action is effective July 14, 2020 at a duly posted meeting, a board member motion, and another second the motion, and all present voted in favor of the two agenda items, provided an alternative health insurance opportunity for our 2,000 employees. Does this mean that it is okay for the Southwest ISD School Board to vote on items without the public having live access? Does this mean that a vote took place in closed session since the public did not have access to this meeting? Something to think about. To make matters worse, a sitting Southwest ISD School Board member made the following comment on Facebook: I am not sure why one would want to address the board about employee health insurance. Does this mean that the Southwest ISD School Board does not care about public input? How would TEA feel about a comment like this? How will the Texas Attorney General feel about this? So many questions and concerns arise from this comment. It is a good thing that we took a picture of this comment. Something to think about. We are a group of Southwest ISD taxpayers that are demanding for transparency and fairness. We are getting stronger and larger, and we're not backing down. I thank you for your time. Raul Leonidas Nukas, respectfully.
Thank you, Mr. Nukas. Ms. Hairston, are you there, ma'am? Unmute your mic, ma'am, so we can hear you. Ms. Hairston? Ms. Hairston, can you hear us, ma'am? Dale, do you see anybody on the call? Annette Hairston?
There's one person here, but let me try to unmute them and see. Ask her again.
Ms. Annette Hairston, are you ready to make your comment, ma'am?
I guess not.
Okay, wait, sir.
Yeah, I think, if Dale does hear at some point during the meeting, we can come, Mr. President, that she has logged on. Right here.
And that concludes our public comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. From there, we'll go on to item 5, consent agenda. Board members, questions? Not, need a motion.
Sylvester Vasquez moves we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item 6 is construction update.
Yes, we have Mr. Chris, who's going to lead us in construction updates. I think there are about 4 projects that he is going to cover, bring the board up to date where some of those items are.
And online, I have Rafael. He's from zooming out. He'll be able to answer some questions that I can. First one we're going to talk about is the Aquatic Center, where we are as far as the auditorium and that project. Just a quick update on the key date up there. I'll show you is what we're looking for is that substantial completion in February 25th, 2022. That's the idea of when we actually have this thing accomplished and built and swimming. We're all working right now. We're through schematic design, engineering design development, and hopefully by October we'll have construction and bid documents out, and then bring in the GMP to the board. Once we have that happen, we can break ground and start moving, and then we're looking for that February 25th. Our project budget. So if you look on the left there, that's our total construction budget. The first part is what we've been telling you as we've been moving forward as far as design, around $24,282,000. The total project, we throw in the architect fees and all the other fees, permitting stuff, that's 27. And then so currently where we are now in DVs, even over the weekend, we've got it down to 24,270.68, which means we're right on time as far as budget when we're in design development. So understand these aren't actual bid numbers because we're still got to get through design development, and in October we'll bid it out. These are a little conservative. Yours is making sure that we don't have any hiccups or anything that's hidden down the road. And so we did have a couple additional adds to the project from the last time we discussed this with you all. The drainage channel that we talked about underneath, that the city came in and because of the drainage that we have to put into place because we're building an auditorium, there's an added cost there. The second meet room, which we went to see Walker Pool, that everybody was interested in, so we can have dual meets. So we added that second room. And then we upgraded our timing and scoring system, similar to what we saw at Walker, where it has a better system as far as timing and also a scoreboard with some video capability. And so that was an additional add. In this project, we do have some contingency, $400,000 for the contractor, $500, so total $900,000 and $500 for us. And that's any issues that may pop up, so we have some contingency in place. Yes, sir.
Where's the contractor's fee and overhead? Is it in the total or is it in construction?
That is going to be in the total project budget.
Okay, so then how would you describe the 24 million? That's direct cost for materials and labor? Is that
Rafael, can you hear me? I want to make sure I said that correctly.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Rafael, so I'm saying it correctly. The contractor fees, is that in the construction budget number or is that in the total project budget number?
No, sir, that is in the construction budget. So that's their fees with including the direct cost of work. The 27 includes all of the additional soft costs, which is design fees, permit fees, any other city fees, materials testing. So that's where the 27 comes in. But the 24.2 has Joris's fees included on them.
okay? And so you have all of the subcontractors, anything having to do with direct cost is in the total, and including the contingency fee.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
So just some renderings. Once again, this is kind of like just a profile from that you would love. You have the parking lot, which is going to be closer towards the Crystal Road area. And you'll get an entrance that you can access both here its own entrance and also use McCullough as available space. If we have buses to come in, and we'll be able to house. If we have smaller meets, we can actually use the loop to put the buses in. If we have a huge regional meet down the road one day, we tap into transportation. Just kind of, this is first floor. Once again, as we're working through this program, everything that we wanted before, the 2 pools, the Murtha pools, the 2 meeting rooms, that's all included. And so over here, you have the athletic offices, you have the locker rooms, and et cetera, and your pool space and your mechanical. Second floor, actually, sorry, but this is the entrance. Second floor is where the athletic offices are, and then you have where the stands and where the folks will be when they come to an national event. Just another rendering of the club again. Kind of what it looks like from in schematic design from the outside. This is where if you were on the Pull-up side, entering the facility. This is what you would see if you walked into the facility. And from the view, if you were sitting down, similar to their experience with they got to go to walk the pool. And that's just a kind of quick update for you all. I don't know if you have any questions for me or Rafael.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The added scopes that you were talking about at the beginning that added the $300,000, where did that, did we discuss that? When did that happen?
So when we went and visited the Walker Pool, we talked about adding a second meeting room so that we can have, we talked about having an event and having 2 events so that we can run 2 events and they have a meeting room on this side, a meeting room on this side. The timing system is something that we've been talking about. If we could fit it within budget, stay within budget number, that we wanted to upgrade that, similar to what they had at Walker Pool. The drainage channel was strictly because of permitting and what we have to do to fix the drainage when we build a building on that site. So that 100,000 there is really induced by.
Yeah, I remember talking about that. I just didn't know that it was an added.
Correct. As we were working through schematic design, we didn't include that number.
Okay.
In that design. But as we went through, we included the other 2 to see if it would fit and keep within the budget numbers that we had presented to you all previously.
Okay, thank you.
Brandon, did we ever have any, or what was the rest of the conversation with regards to the soil issues? Did we ever come to a conclusion there?
Yes. Rafael, can you explain what we're doing on the soil issues?
Yes, so we are going to have a suspended slab or drilled piers on the building itself. That's being included in the 24-2. On our last board presentation, that was an add in terms of soils that added just over $1 million. We did do excavation and investigation all throughout the site just to see if we were able to relocate the building and not incur those costs. Unfortunately, there were no better soils anywhere on the site. So if we moved the building further away, we were going to incur cost on curbs, asphalt, driveways. So in terms of location, we decided to locate it and place it where we originally wanted. But that $24 million too includes the add for the soil remediation structure of the pool.
And what was the amount?
It was about $1 million.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any more questions on that, Torium?
We're doing this in partnership with the City of San Antonio, Brandon. And so does that include the $4 million that they're contributing, or is it beyond that?
They're out of the $4 million, we're getting 3.8 for the construction side of it. So as we start getting into construction, the district will be reimbursed for that cost. And so that number has that built in. But when we come with the GMP, we will ask the district for fund balance to cover that, and then we will invoice the city, and they will reimburse us that 3.8. The reason why it's 3.8, not 4, is there's some fees in them for indirect costs for them to run to work with us and send their people out to inspect. So they have costs for them. There's no more questions. I'll move on to phase 3 of Southwest High School. Currently, this is about 12% completed, but based on if you look at the payouts. This project, right now, they're getting areas, the Cyber Patriot area. They demoed the Cyber Patriot area, and they started to work on painting and upgrading the light fixtures and also did ROTC and life skills. They completely demoed that area. That has been painted as well. They also started on the locker room, the restrooms in the gym that needed to be upgraded. And so they're hoping to have those actually completed by August, beginning of August. We pushed them to get that ready just in case volleyball would begin. So we had those restrooms ready. So some pictures here. There really is not a lot of pictures. This is demoed areas. This is your Cyber Patriot space that's been demoed. But here's the, if you recall, the shooting range and in the RLTC area. That's all been demoed out and painted. They put in the new light fixtures, and then they're going to go back in with the shooting rig soon. They have that all ready to go. The other piece is the restrooms. Here, these are what the restrooms look like in the area by the gym. And so really, we focus on those 4 areas at this point for Southwest High School. We have a lot more to go. We're just taking it in sections. So that's pretty much the update for Southwest High School Phase 3. The other project, real quickly, I'll kind of run through, which is an exciting project, is our HVAC systems for all our elementary gyms. All elementary gyms, all 11, the units are actually in place. Now they're going to just to rough them in and get them ready to go before we start school. So as we thought this would be phased over time, over a year or so, and next summer, they're actually on pace to finish those up this summer. And so all 11 will have AC gyms, hopefully by the time students enter.
Great.
We have 4 roofing projects in this same project with the same vendor. The roll-up roof has actually been 60% installed, so we're putting a foam roof there. And that one's almost going to be done here by the end of the course. School starts below. You have Indian Creek that began last week, and so they just started that, and all our units have been completely hooked up, pending hooked up. I'm sorry. And then you have Freewood and Elm Creek. They scraped up all the gravel off of those, and they're going to be beginning to work on those next week. So hopefully all our rooftops are in our gyms, and our roofs are on our buildings that are for the summer. So very good job of the contractor on this project. The last project, just a quick update, is the Cosmo over at Legacy. That's on pace to be finished before school starts. They're pretty much going in with the rough ends now and millwork, so that'll be exciting to see once it gets ready. Once it's completed, we'll take you over and let you look at it. But that's on pace to be finished up this summer. The last thing I want to share with you, we've been approached. We just want to share with the board that we're going to speak to them and hear them out from the ESC 5 fire district and looking at purchasing some land in Southwest ISD, build a new firehouse. It'll be off Monbach Road in the area that we have between Scobie and Big Country. We want to make sure we don't take away from the students when they use it for fields and ballparks. But so we're looking at the area closer to, I guess it would be the Dollar General.
Actually, across the street from Sonic.
Sonic, correct.
That corner.
So we're going to. So we're going to meet with them and just have
I
some
know,
talk.
it's a face that looks like a familiar face, it's a face face. You actually listen to my.
We don't have much on that yet.
You know, we've talked about that piece of property for a long time, and it was always a buffer for the middle school students who get out, so they can go out and if they have a younger sibling at Big Country Elementary. And so, great opportunity to put a resource for the community, and also a resource that's adjacent to 2 of our schools that they could be on the spot, rapid response. They also offered an opportunity to be available for those weekend football games. We'll get back to normal at some point in the future. So it's really, we're not bringing any recommendation yet. We're entering a dialogue with ESD 5. They like that area, and I think we'll bring that information to the board to make a decision
under the impression that we couldn't build anything in that particular area. Something about.
On the street, in that street line area between there's a little road that runs, looks like a road, but there's a gas line in there. So we'd have to kind of be behind that, and closer to the trees are all, and further down, closer to where between Skokie and Big Country. Now,
Or move it.
they don't need is a lot of acreage, so it's not like they're going to take up the whole area. So we would still be able to stay with most likely. But we're going to go walk it and see what their needs are. They already have some schematic designs and what they need as far as acreage. It's just us getting out there with them and see if we can meet their needs, and also don't take away any availability of their kids' need space. I think we can make it work. Just getting with them and discussing and making sure that they need.
And one of their biggest concerns right now is the firehouse that they have to run their calls from to the Big Country area and the Crewald area. It takes much longer now that they've done all that construction on in that area. So I want to say it was like
45 minutes.
yeah. So that it would, the people in our school district area would really benefit from something much closer.
And one of the things I learned along with that, because the side roads are now one ways. Remember when they used to be two way? Well, now they're one way, so they got to make a loop to Montgomery Road.
By the way, y'all can thank an ex-board member that passed away a long time ago for coming to the board and asking them if they wanted to make money on it, because he found out that was for sale very cheap. So whatever that's worth.
But then the other thing is, I found out that their new firehouses are legit firehouses. I mean, they're not, what they used to, tin barns anymore. And they'd have an EMS and fire truck there. I mean, the response time to our schools.
They're fixing to build a new firehouse at Montgomery Road.
And this would be 12 to 24 months down the road, but we need to get the conversation started.
Well, they need to know if we're interested, if we can either work it out with them so that they can plan for it. Because in their current space, they're designing their current building that they're in, so they are pretty much landlocked, and they could add more firemen and all that.
How big is it?
They're ones that they have right now. I don't know. They just said they're at 16 firefighters right now, and they could go to 32 if they have a bigger.
It's because of the bedrooms, remember?
Yeah,
You
they
said
don't have
that,
10 bedrooms. They would have 10 bedrooms.
right now they have like 5 or 6, something like that.
So, we belong to Geronimo, that area, right? Or it's some other.
That would be our district.
So that they would take care of the schools as well. Gosh.
Yeah, they were.
And all Big Country.
Yeah.
3 schools.
That'd be great.
They do now. They already take care of it.
Yeah.
So it just cut down on response time if they were on this side of town.
Well, because that area grew a lot too where they're at. The Petranco on the outside of 1604.
Yeah, the junior high, the elementary would really be great for them.
That's all I have.
We did that for a long time.
Thanks, Sarah.
President, that concludes our construction update.
All right, you're still up there. How about the tax report?
Tax rate, we're tracking at 96%. We're pretty much on where we were last year. Like 0.45 below. So it's interesting to watch to see how we ended the year. Because when I get into the budget, I'll talk about the tax rate collection rate that I'm trying to use for the budget for next year. So as long as we stay on track to where we were last year, I think we're going to be in good shape. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. All right, the finance, investment, gifts report, any of that y'all get with him later. And enrollment report, of course, we don't have much of a enrollment report now. Purchases over 50,000. If you have questions. All right, the handbook. Review and purchase the handbook.
Yes, sir. So we have Dr. Fay with Administration and Resource who's going to give information on the 2020-2021 student care handbook.
So I believe Adrienne Ramirez, who's the Executive Director for Administration and People Services, is online to share with you the changes and updates to the one that we had last year. Are you there, Adrienne?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So, good evening, Board President Frazier, board members, Dr. Verstuff. We have actually made some changes to the student and parent handbook. The student parent handbook is designed to serve as a general reference guide only and is designed to be in harmony with board policy and the student code of conduct. The student and parent handbook is not a complete statement of all policies or procedures and rules, but may be applied in a given circumstance. The student code of conduct addendum governs all behavior at school-sponsored and school-related activities, and during school-sponsored travel. The handbook is developed using the TASB model. There were a few changes that we actually made to this year's handbook, and I've actually highlighted a few of those changes. One of them dealing with child nutrition is one change that was made was that since all campuses are now participating in the community eligibility provision, information regarding lunch applications and negative lunch balances has been removed from the handbook. Regarding athletics, information pertaining to the athletic college signing recognitions has been added. Curriculum instruction added some information regarding class ranking information for secondary grade levels for the 2021, 2022, and 2023 cohorts. That has been added to this year's handbook. For health services, information about the district being able to implement health and safety procedures and practices to meet local, state, and federal level guidelines has been added. This includes, but is not limited to, the use of personal protective equipment and social distancing. We also added some information in the area of dress and grooming, information about personal protective equipment being appropriate, and this is equipment utilized by students being appropriate and not depicting signs, symbols, or logos that are associated with prohibited substances, gangs, cults, and violence. Finally, we did also make changes to various charts in the handbook, and some of these charts include testing dates for credit by exam, and dates for SAT testing and ACT testing. So these pretty much highlight the changes that were made for this year's handbook.
You have questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Employee handbook.
We have Mr. Will Baker from Administration Resource who's going to give information on the Southwest IT employee handbook.
Usually, Board Member, President Frazier, Dr. Versta. As Adrian said, the student parent handbook, the employee handbook is a summary of board policy and administrative procedures used as a reference for all employees. We do have very minor changes this year, mostly regarding Title IX reporting. Federal government came out just recently with some new Title IX guidelines having to do with discrimination, harassment, retaliation. There will be some training requirements for all employees as we start at the beginning of the new school year. And those will be some reporting requirements and investigation requirements on the district. And those will be summarized for the employees in the new handbook. As far as employee standards of conduct, there's two minor changes to some ethics standards and one that was added. The one that added does have to do with sexual harassment. Again, that's tied to the Title IX changes.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry I interfered with your job, Mr. Superintendent. The next one is Ida J.
I didn't hear you, sir.
J, project plan.
This is our reentry project plan, and just want to we want to apply to the board where we are in our thinking. We know that there are a lot of questions, concerns about coming back to the 2020-2021 school year. And so what we have been doing as a senior level administration, as a task force, as a larger group of decision makers based on, I would say, countless hours of Zoom meetings with local and state entities, with PTA and local health advisors, with our mayor, with our judge, with Region 20 on a standing basis. I promise we've been in at least 6 Zoom meetings throughout the day, Tuesday, Thursday, the 20 days.
think TA as an agency has done a really great job of providing information, almost to the point that there's so much information. The information is so good and continually changes. I can tell you our thinking last week is different this week. That's kind of been the only common denominator since I would say the month of May, is that everything continually evolves and continues to form. What we're doing as a senior administrative staff and as a larger decision-making body and our task force is bringing our first draft to our trustees this evening as a presentation. But we want you to understand it's going to look a lot different next week. It's going to look a lot different the week after that. And it's going to be very user-friendly. And so we'd like to go through kind of our deck today. Our senior admin and other folks have some presentation. I'll start with the first slide there. One of the questions that we get a lot, are we starting back to school when the first day of school arrives in Southwest ISD? The answer is no, that we are under a local health order right now in Bear County, San Antonio, that closes every school through September 7th, which is Labor Day. So that's the earliest that a school can open up for any type of face-to-face instruction. However, our first day of school in Southwest ISD is still August 24th, 2020, and that is when we will start remote school, like we've done in the past. This order that you see right now really kind of provides some guidance. That first bullet point, we will be in a remote environment through Labor Day, and that it is incumbent upon the school districts through work with their board of trustees to make sure that our families and our students have access to technology. We've been working in that arena for a long time. We've got some long-term projects underway with the county. Then we have some other kind of fixes that we've been doing, and we are purchasing more of a hotspot, which is internet capabilities for the home. This order also, the second bullet, allows teachers to teach remotely in their classroom during that interim, as long as you do not surpass a 10% capacity of that facility. There's a lot of talk in our local meetings amongst all the school districts about the importance of the quality of remote instruction, which is different in classrooms than it does at a kitchen table. A kitchen table in an emergency environment. We as a school system, I would say we, Texas, in totality, did a really great job of moving that environment over one weekend or 1 week and providing access for teaching and learning. But now that we have time, we really want to create something that's more bold, more engaging, and more effective for students, because there's still a requirement on districts to teach greater than an appropriate level of teach and to be able to offer an engaging environment for our students. So that second bullet in this help order allows for teachers to teach in their classroom during the interim, because there is a good chance that this order can be extended beyond September 7th as well. That all depends on the COVID landscape. The third bullet, is the emphasis on the face-to-face that is not available through September the 7th. And the fourth bullet basically is we are required by August 21st to submit our face-to-face plan to our local and I believe our state entities about this is how we would incrementally start face-to-face. The idea that we have and that part of our plan is really to start small, basically identifying our students who need to be in those environments as fast as we can get them in there to mitigate some of that learning efficiency that may be taking place during the times that they have not been able to tap into face-to-face environments. You can see on our next slide, beyond this one, this is our group. I think I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fay here. She's going to talk more about, our district is divided up into these divisions. And so we do work, but we also have a task force that we've given some direction and guidance to being able to take information out, then bring that information back
that we're dealing with the most current information, and understanding it's going to change tomorrow until we get to August 24th. I really want to emphasize to our trustees that we are taking this information, we're bringing it to you, but it's in no way, shape, or form that we are a final product. This is our big milestones. We want our 5-point plan that we call our 5-point reentry plan, and we hope part of our work in the next couple of 3 weeks will be some really big decisions we make. We hope one of those decisions is to rename it instead of a reentry plan. We call it something else, but we have to take advantage of this opportunity when we're able to collect our board in the regular schedule meeting to provide use of up-to-date status. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Fate, and I think we're going to hear some other members.
Ida has a question.
Can I just make a quick comment, Lloyd? So I know that we were like in an emergency situation when we didn't come back after spring break. So, you know, we were all just flying by the seat of our pants, basically, right? Trying to get our kids as much instruction as possible, which I think our teachers really did a great job of, you know, that being thrown at them and, you know, doing the best they can with what they had. And, you know, our parents trying to be teachers at home while still working a full-time job. You know, it's just, it was a lot, right? But I think the population that was hit the hardest was our special ed population, because, and special ed is such a huge umbrella, right? So we have the kids that are in the gen ed population that just need inclusion support, right? So they could probably learn, you know, not as well as they could, but they're still able to get some kind of enrichment, right? But then we have the population of special ed students that receive zero enrichment, right? Because unless you have the training to teach a life skill student, then basically they have been vegging out since March to today, right? Because you can ask them to open their laptop and try to watch, and that special ed teacher is doing the best he can to engage that student. But a lot of our students with autism, with whatever disability they have, are not able to engage. They'll just close the laptop because, for one thing, we've kind of ruined their whole schedule, which is crucial to some of those children. So I understand the need to be safe, and I understand, but what's really aggravating in this whole COVID-19 thing that our nation's going through is that we've just kind of thrown a blanket out and engulfed everybody in that blanket. And education is supposed to be individualized learning. I mean, that's what we always preach, individualized learning, but we're leaving out a whole population of children. And I know that the state is telling us we have to, whatever the health directive is, but there should be some pushback in that regard to our special ed population. So it's not fair for these parents who have been, basically school is a respite for some of them. And we've been asking them to be 24/7 with these really high need children. And if there's, I'm just like begging that if there's any kind of input that the school district can give to the state and our local leaders, if we're not opening up our schools on August, whatever it is, 24th or 21st, if we're not going to have the gen ed population in there, we're going to have a lot of room in that school to social distance. So if it's at all possible, we really need to look at those kids that are getting zero learning as opposed to the kids that are getting some learning. And so I just want to express that, I mean, that it's not a reasonable thing to expect our parents. You know, there's going to come a point in time where they just cannot function anymore 24/7 with their high need students because they feel like they're being left out. And basically they are, because there's some that just cannot learn virtually. So I appreciate everything everybody's doing, but I think a little pushback with the state to really include that special need population is, we need to be that voice for those families.
And I think that very valid point, and I think you really stated it well. I know I work with a small group of local superintendents, and I can promise you that request specific to vulnerable student groups went specifically to the health advisory folks that have that conversation, and it was at the end of last week. I think the feeling was in our meeting that it wasn't really being embraced, that they just felt there's a need to protect all children. At this point in time, to the nth degree. So our new question is asking what metrics would it take in order for us to be able to address the needs of our most vulnerable. Let's start slow and let's start with 10% and work up. And so I think that's kind of where we're working our conversation now. But I hear you, and I get what you're saying. I think it's representative of a lot of needs that we have in our backyard, but also the organization.
Yeah, and I saw something on that where there's 3 or 4 populations that really need our attention. That's one, the other being homeless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about the homeless as well, they have nowhere to go. So, yeah, I think we need to put something together.
So I think we're poised well to service that need. We are putting out surveys constantly to our community. But one thing that we covered today in our meeting was a very specific survey to our families that have special education kids in their homes. And so that has been completed by Aubrey Hogan. Will Baker presented it to senior staff in our larger group this morning. And I think that they're getting ready to push that out, but it's only specific to our special population. It is not just something general going out to everybody.
Can I add something about that parent survey? I spoke to one of the parents that was trying to fill out the survey, and she said the question was, would you prefer virtual learning for the 2020 school year or in person? So they didn't answer it because they don't know what's going to happen. So like right now they're like, oh, well, I like virtual for the first 6 weeks, but I don't want to have my kid at home all year, right? So they didn't even end up turning the survey in because they couldn't answer it to give enough good information, right? So I'm thinking that a lot of our parents that are saying yes to virtual, I don't think they mean the whole school year. You know what I mean? So maybe our survey can be a little bit more.
I know that question starts with at this time.
Okay.
But maybe we need to finish it as we're not asking about the whole year. We're just asking about right now.
Right. I mean, she just said she didn't feel like she could turn it in and really give good information. Like she didn't want her voice to be heard because it wasn't what she wanted to
Good feedback. Well, we're doing this survey this week, next week, and we just want to keep getting data. So we're making the survey very short and very to the point so that can happen very quickly. I know they don't want long surveys. The ones that Dr. Faye's referring to, that's a pretty extensive survey, but it's going out to specifically so that we learn more about it.
And like I said, I appreciate all you're doing. I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to voice for that population.
So for purposes of our meeting tonight, I want to thank, when we did move into that environment in March, Mark Figueroa was leading us through something called the SCOOP meetings, which is a continued operations. And so we transitioned that team to this particular team, which is more of a task force led by senior leadership with their respective divisions taking the lead. The project leads on these are listed there, but we also have up to 67 to 70 members of our either counseling staff, admin teams, teachers that are on each individual committees that are helping us devise our plans. For purposes of tonight, our plan is not to share with you internally what we are doing with the staff, so you will not see that as part of our plan today. We do have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow to get input on some of the work that we've done there, but that's specific to internal with our employees of the district. So for our purposes tonight, this is really about what is our plan to educate our kids when we come back to school on the 24th in whatever environment that we're in. And so informed by the research, we are developing a comprehensive 5-point plan designed to keep our students, faculty, and staff healthy, provide flexibility for families unable to return and plan for future contingencies. So the 5 points that we will be discussing tonight are prevention, incident reporting, learning options, and supporting students, and then finally contingency planning in the event that we do have another COVID outbreak. What are we going to do? And so we did do some surveys, to your point, Ms. Vulcan and board. 44% of our staff, which is 428 out of 981, indicate that when we re-enter schools for the fall, they will be willing to return to work on campus. If you can see, there is the I don't knows, probably because they just don't know where we're going to be at that time. And so I think that is, as much as it is true to our community, it is very true for our staff as well. This is a staff survey. Majority of staff would increase sanitation efforts and regular hand washing, hand sanitizer used by all students and staff. Very specifically, 983 out of our 1,200 responses wanted daily screening for all people, including students. Weekly screening at 516. Let's see. The district can restrict campus visitors, 964. Increase sanitation efforts, regular hand washing and hand sanitation by all, almost 95%, 98%. Student desks seated 6 feet apart, which we will address through our social distancing. Staff wearing masks, face shields much of the day. Students wearing masks, face shields as well. And then staggered entry and exit for class transition. And so I think that's some really good feedback from our internal employees on behalf of what needs to happen for our kids. So we did have a parent survey as well. And we ended up getting a lot more feedback in the last 2 days because we actually pushed it out through a campus link this time and not just through a district link. Mm-hmm. So this number was sitting at about 1,000 on Friday, and we're up to almost right over 4,000 responses now. 77% of Southwest ISD parents indicated that at this time, they prefer virtual learning environments for their kids. And so you can see that only 23% pick face-to-face. And so I can share as a parent of a student in the system, I was very challenged with even answering that for myself.
Yeah, that matches our local ISD. We meet weekly, several times a week, pretty much pretty aligned with everyone else.
Mm-hmm. But we have 13,000 kids.
Yeah, and we are keeping it open through Wednesday evening, I believe. And maybe I'll be corrected on that, but I think it's Wednesday. So we do have different people that will be presenting their portions of the plan so that they can ask the questions that you may have tonight. First up, we have over prevention, which is Mark Bigelow and Val Lee.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Sometimes my time to burn together. So the survey that you just saw really reflects what we are going to be doing during the school day. Hygiene practices, lots and lots of hand washing. We should be doing that anyway, but now we are really going to make it a part of the day because that's important to help prevent the spread of illness and disease. We have hand sanitizer stations at the campus entrances and throughout our campuses actually in designated locations. We're going to work to put hand sanitizer in our classrooms as well. Hand washing actually will be part of the classroom routine. We do have lots of signage promoting those COVID-19 safety tips. We will continue to put those up so that way students understand the importance of hand washing and those hygiene practices. We will implement temperature screenings for anybody who's entering the facility. That will be part of our daily morning routine. PPE, just as you all are wearing masks, we will have masks and face shields for our students and our staff. That will be an expectation that everybody wears a mask because masks really do help to contain the spread of any respiratory droplets that could potentially house COVID-19 virus, right? So we want
Is that also when they're sitting at their desk?
Yes, ma'am.
So the little kids will be wearing a mask for like 8 hours?
So it's not a mask, a face shield. We will implement some sort of break in between.
Okay.
But really, the important thing is all of these things should be done all together, not just one over the other, to
Right.
really minimize the risk of the spread of COVID-19. So that's really important. So we do want to encourage that. Now, of course, we know what's developmentally appropriate for pre-care may not be the same for a high school.
Right.
So those are things we would definitely take into consideration.
So I'm just curious, if it's supposed to be you're supposed to keep a 6-foot distance. Okay, so the masks have, correct me if I'm wrong, but the mask idea is if you cannot maintain social distance. And social distance is 6 feet. So if we're gonna have the desks 6 feet apart, then why can't the student not wear a mask when they're seated at their desk?
So we are going to try to do both, but that is definitely something that we have in our plans when they are 6 feet apart. That is something that we are taking into consideration. How can we implement that throughout the
I'm just bringing that up because for health reasons of the little kids too, having a mask on for that long is probably not healthy.
Right, and we do understand that again, what's developmentally appropriate for some is not.
Right, I just don't want to blanket it because that's what we.
Absolutely.
I didn't quite get the answer to her question. This student would have to wear the mask all day long.
So that's what we're hoping for. I'm sorry. And then up, so that's the order, the mandate that is currently in the city mandates 10 years and older for a mask. But we do want our younger students to wear masks as well because we know the purpose of the mask is really to contain those respiratory droplets and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
And Valerie, would you say that the most current science is showing that if you're indoors, the best practice is for everybody to wear a mask because it travels, it's airborne?
Absolutely.
So if there's a lack of windows or if our ventilation systems are not, they're not prepared to handle this kind of, right? So then indoors, the mask is for that. So outside, if we're 6 feet apart, it's safer. But inside, all that continues to just circulate, right?
And again, I want to enforce that it's not one thing over another. It really has to be a combination of all of these things to help minimize the spread of COVID-19. So the more we can do of everything, the lower we can lower the risk of that spread, which is really what we want to do.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're very clear and we pin down the science behind the recommendations. Right?
Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely.
But then that being said, the science is changing all the time.
Right.
Because originally they told us not to wear a mask. And now they tell us to wear a mask. My concern is I'm pretty sure that I have read, which, could be changed since yesterday, that it's not healthy for a child to wear a mask all day because they're just constantly breathing in their own whatever. I'm just saying I don't want to. I know we have to be cautious and I know we want our children to be safe, but we don't want to err on the side that we're going to make them sick because they've got a mask on all day.
So one of the things that we've been looking at is we're treating everything like we do with security, layers,
Mhm.
layers of protection. So we're looking at other options like desk dividers, to splash guards, so to speak, on teachers' desks, like we're doing in the front offices. And that's one of the things that we're looking to do when we have the 6 feet, we're looking at the dividers, plexiglass dividers.
Okay.
Younger kids, we know that the masks are a little bit more restrictive, so we're looking at age-appropriate face shields.
Okay. And I agree with the face shield, but what I heard you say earlier was both.
Yes,
So I don't want him wearing a face
together.
shield and a mask at the same time.
No. So
Okay.
we have face shields and
All right.
And I'm sorry if I didn't.
No, I just want to make sure. I just don't want. I like Yolanda says, we have to be super, super clear because if we're hearing you have to wear a face mask if you're not 6 feet apart, then I want to be clear that that does not include inside the classroom. You know what I mean? So,
I have a quick question, and that is, what do you do if the kid just doesn't want masks?
We're treating it as an
Kick 'em out.
educational, just like we do with the IDs. We don't want to make it a punitive issue. We want to get the parents involved. We want to make sure that they're aware of why we're going through this protocol. Recommended from the CDC, recommended from PA, and for our local health authorities as well.
And another piece to that is also education. So we are integrating education into our classroom routine because that is important because little ones we know will not wear them it will be very difficult to do that. So it will become part of their education at the beginning, so that way those expectations are good. And it's a teaching opportunity.
Yeah, well, there are probably some old ones that won't work as well. And maybe some teachers, but certainly there'll be seniors that, hey, this is a good way to get kicked out for them. I don't know.
I think the face
The
should,
difference is that we have different modalities now.
Mhm.
So addressing the concern when we have just a completely people to do and follow rules will be a little bit easier than which is fine. They are putting some guidelines out for us to kind of dig into. But I do think that now that we have the various modalities of actual learning and delivery, that's going to be accessible to all kids and will allow us to address that situation very specifically. So,
and I think the face shield is just a much better option for our kinder, first grade, second grade kids. And I know that special ed already had ordered face shields, and they were like making them kind of cute at the top, like so yeah, like, whatever. But I mean, I don't want you to think I'm saying not to wear a mask, but if there's an option of a shield versus a mask, it's just better
And
for
so
8 hours a
we
day.
are working on ordering those face shields for
And so what are you gonna do with teachers again? Do they have to provoke
I'm sorry.
teachers?
No.
What do teachers have to do?
What we've looked at for the younger age group, as Dr. Fay mentioned, we've had teachers, we've had administrators, we've had counselors work as part of our health and wellness group. We're wanting to get the feedback as to what type of PPE you need for the PK2, 3 through 5, and so forth. And one of the points that they made with the younger kids that are learning words, they need to see the teacher's mouth, how they enunciate the word. So we're going to recommend the face shields for that. It's going to be age appropriate with instructional piece tied into the protective layers that we're offering.
Sounds like y'all are working really hard.
And it's,
We appreciate it.
nothing set in stone, like it's changing. We've been working on this since I started closure, so when we brought back the summer school, a lot of this was already part of our plan. So we're just,
No, turn the TV on, it's probably changing.
Social distancing, I just talked about that.
Right.
It's definitely something we will implement in the classroom throughout the school day because it is important. Science has adjusted that over years. Does mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So we definitely want to integrate that.
so in terms of the cleaning guidelines, kudos to our facilities and maintenance department. We were years almost ahead of everybody else. Before we went to spring break, we had that plan already. We knew that something was coming. We didn't think it was going to happen that quick, but we already started a cleaning protocol prior to spring break. We have a daily cleaning protocol weekly, and then we have a deep cleaning protocol whenever there's a COVID issue. So that has not changed. So what we're looking at is new products to support us that are EPA approved, not only FDA approved, but also EPA approved. That's being put together on a list by the Texas School Safety Center as well as regional service centers and local health. So our fleet names, gentlemen, are testing those out. We're looking to also order the electrostatic guns that we use for the deep cleaning process for every campus. But a lot of those items are on back order. The PPE, we did get 11 pallets of PPE we picked up today that was provided to us by GEA. So we now have those in our distribution warehouse, and we'll be taking inventory. That includes face shields, face masks, thermometers, infrared thermometers as well. So those are items that we're going to be putting into our plan as we start to bring the staff.
The thermometers you're using, are you going to be using, like you said, the monitors? Are you going to use those ones that hold in your hand or the one you stand in front of? What's up the camera? Okay. And those are pretty accurate?
So the reliability of them is not great, but they do provide a fast way to take temperatures, and then we will have protocols in place if they do find. So that way we won't just take that first reading.
And have you seen the ones that are on the tripod? They have some that they're on the tripod. They look like a real high-tech camera, and you just stand in front of it, and if it beeps, you have to go to the side.
Yes,
but
yes, I have. And a lot of those, there's people coming out with very high technology sorts of things, and they can be quite costly. So, but yes, I have seen them. In fact, we are looking at some of those and just trying to get price on them.
Okay.
The vendor emails and PPE are growing.
Yeah.
Everybody has
Each one of
Thank
these
you.
areas under the point of prevention will be a dissertation in itself. And so our goal is to kind of bring you big picture, and as the plan develops, we like to give you the link to that area so you can see the development of every one of these areas. Our second point.
So this is somewhat of a combination, sharing of incident reporting, talking about schedules and spacing and seating, but I think we've kind of already covered it. Unless, Adrian, do you want to chime in on the schedules?
Just that some of the work that we've been doing has addressed the development of procedures and practices for various scheduled activities. These activities include how students are going to be arriving at school with, of course, the idea of social distancing, keeping that in mind. How some of the activities also include things like transitions or any transitions that might take place, especially those that pertain to lunches, breakfast, and even dismissal at the end of the day. So that's some of the work that we're doing in the area of scheduling.
That's all dependent on numbers of students in buildings and
Correct.
So I think y'all have already addressed the spacing and seating. Mark, unless you want to add something else to that, but I think
What we looked at, and we've been meeting with campus administrators, secondary level, we're looking at the high school, you can probably effectively social distance about 16 to 18 desks in a regular classroom. There are others that are shops that we have to do other things, and there are also others that are science labs. At the middle school, we're probably looking at about 14, 16 desks that we could use in our standard size classroom. And then at the elementary level, we're looking at 12 for like 13 fifth. And then the smaller grade levels that have the curved tables, they don't have a desk. We're looking at using face shields along with the dividers.
thank you. So I think we might have had a wrong subtitle on that. Sorry about that. And so something that we have had some experience with this year already is what happens when we do have someone that has been identified in our buildings or in our student populations or adults when something does happen and we find out someone has COVID. So I think we've had experience there. I think Valerie will speak to what happens when a student tests positive for COVID, and then will speak to what happens when a staff.
So these are pretty similar because if somebody is actually diagnosed with COVID-19, they do have to be out for a certain amount of time. And we would not do that without consulting with our local health authority, Metropolitan Health District, because then what happens when we have our kids back in class is, do we have to then have the whole classroom out? What does that mean? Or is the campus? So it's very dependent on the situation and the circumstances. But we are working through that, and we'll come up with a protocol definitely that guides us as to what to do, again, in collaboration with Management Metropolitan Health District. With that comes contact tracing. Again, just making sure that we contact those who were a close contact, meaning within 60 to 15 minutes or longer, to ensure that they are in quarantine, because the incubation period of COVID-19 is up to 14 days. And again, this is to help limit and minimize the spread of COVID-19. And so the same happens with staff. Currently, we've had more experience with staff because we don't have students on campus. So we'll really talk about
So we've had some experience with staff that have actually tested positive for COVID, and we've had several staff members who have had close contact with people and report that to us, and we had a few who have come to work and have complained of symptoms. And so we have a procedure in place by which the department heads or the principal will, of course, send those folks home and then alert myself, and I alert Mary Levery and Valerie. We work together to do the contact tracing as a team. We're anticipating when we get more staff back on, we're going to ask each department and each campus to have a contact tracing team, which the nurse will lead at that point. And we'll ask the principals to identify 2 or 3 more people to be on that team to help. If we have someone who comes on the campus, we need to know where they've been and who they've been in contact with. And then we'll collect that information and send it up to senior leadership so they can make further decisions on how we should react to the incident that's been reported to us. Mary Levery will contact all the employees that have benefits, and she will go over with them with their leave options at that time and how they might use the FFCRA, which I know you guys already looked at and had a session on with the attorney. So we're working on that. We put in a policy in which if a staff member wants to go get tested, we're giving them 48 hours to go and get that medical advice and then tell us what they've learned, what kind of advice they're getting back from their doctor at that. And then we are able to use that information to tell them about their leave options.
Eventually, we'll have flow charts kind of listing how we make decisions. I can tell you back in April, if someone within the building had a test positive, we shut the building down. And what we're moving to is doing the contact tracing, so we don't have to shut all buildings down. There is a protocol under the PEA guidelines that if we do have to shut a building down, that we have 5 days to disinfect and get the building up, or take the students back into a remote learning status immediately, so that if not, we would lose funding, ADA funding. So there's a lot of different protocols that we're kind of looking at as we build this as well.
So the next part of this is actually the part that I think is most challenging, is trying to make sure that our kids are still learning during this time. And so Mr. Lila Garcia will be presenting to us on our learning options.
Thank you. So just like Dr. Bernstone shared earlier, our calendar is still to begin our instruction on August 24th. And what the state has allowed for us to do is to consider placing the students in a virtual environment at least for 3 to 4 weeks. And so for that reason, our district has opted to recommend September the 8th being our first day where we begin our face-to-face instruction. So what the state is also saying is that on that first day of August 24th, we have to make sure that that digital divide has been taken care of. If in the case we cannot take care of that digital divide, we have to then make accessible instruction. And so for that reason, we are looking at the capacity of the buildings in order for us to look at those crucial populations of students that we would have to then provide if any extenuating circumstance that they do not have a digital device. So I know that with the work of Brendan has been gracious enough to continue to move the devices and order the devices, and just making sure that that is not a reason why our students are receiving instruction at home to begin with. So the next thing is the learning modalities. The state has continuously been adding additional learning modalities. We begin and we're familiar with what virtual is, which is students are at home. But what the state has been really intentional about is, like what we said last year, they took a device, they went home, and how are we tracking the learning is happening? So the state has come up with 2 technical terms, which is asynchronous and synchronous. So last year when we took off in March, we went ahead and put out a schedule where pre-K to 12th grade, we expected for the students to be logging in for almost 6 hours during the daytime. So for that reason, the state has come up with asynchronous. So an asynchronous model is the students at any time can log in to receive instruction. So asynchronous, that means that the students can either engage during live classroom instruction, or if not, then the parent can come in the afternoon and log in and also see that instruction has been recorded that happened during the day. So now for the parents, we are allowing them to either come synchronously at the same time when the teacher receives the live instruction, or asynchronously at any time that the lesson is be available. Now what happened last year is we started targeting, we started record keeping, we started looking at how do we know the students are engaged. And we came up with our own definition. Whether the students log in, if the students show up in the Google Classroom, if the teacher gets to speak to the student. Well, by now, the state has changed and has made a very rigorous requirement, which is called the daily trackable engagement. So they're very specific with this daily trackable engagement, that in order for us to get funding, we have to have evidence that the students have been engaged on a daily basis. And so those 3 areas are, they have to make sure that
their curricular progress, that we are seeing that they're progressing. That's going to be one on a daily basis. It could be of 3 things, and it's either it's curricular progress or even data progress. So right now the state, although they have put these requirements out there, we are still looking at what is going to be the learning platform that we're going to have our students learning. So right now we are using Google Classroom, but with this additional requirement, the state is looking at 2 additional learning management systems. Learning management systems that, yes, they can see the teacher live, but at the same time, the teacher can go ahead and post an assignment, and that assignment then is going to be trackable daily engagement, that we would know that every single student on that device, on that instruction on that day, is finished or completed some sort of an activity. The last thing would be is that they do complete a full activity. So I know last year we had students with 8 assignments for the day. So this is why we're being very careful with how we are designing this, that the learning management system in itself is already going to have an opportunity for the students to show that they were engaged. So the state has been very specific with the asynchronous plan, that it's not just because they are on the computer that we can say that they are learning. The other thing is that for the teachers, they will be following what we call the synchronous. So we do want for the teachers to be available on a daily basis, following their daily schedule, just as a face-to-face instruction were to be happening. So it's the option of asynchronous is more for the students. And because we understand the situations that are happening at home, where we would want to be able to give the students and the families that opportunity. The only other option is a hybrid, and that is only for the high school, and this option was just became available on Friday. So again, we went back and we revised and we're looking at schedules. So for the high school, there are certain courses like CT or Korean clinical courses that require lab hours. So for that, we have to bring in the students. Now the high school is opting to be able to offer that as one of the choices. So the high school is looking at hybrid and also the learning as well. Now going back to that special education and special population surveys, based on that, we are looking at even the capacities of the building. So we looked at here is we have our face-to-face instruction. As I mentioned, this is something that has to be available for elementary to middle school. Now the face-to-face instruction, we're gonna substitute this on a daily basis with a hybrid for the high school. We have, and well here, we're keeping in mind the percentages. So right now, due to our health ordinance, we can only allow the 10% capacity in any building, so we're keeping that in mind. Then as I explained to you, the online with daily evidence of progress with a remote instruction. And now the asynchronous and synchronous that is tied to attendance. So we're going to go into that in a little bit. And then again, like I mentioned, the hybrid, which is a high school option. Any questions?
The management system that the state's gonna have us use, is that already up and running, or have they picked it, or?
So we have been using pockets of Seesaw. Seesaw is supposed to be a good learning management system for children in fifth grade. And they're also recommending school, which is a good learning system for the secondary. Now, the reason we're waiting on the state is because if we wait on them and if it's the state approved, we will be getting these learning management systems for free for the next 2 years. We're also looking at Google Classroom, which the teachers have really learned, and they've experienced with it. And we're still going to come back during our teacher professional development days, really focusing on making a learning management system platform really accessible to the teachers, train the teachers, and that's going to be our focus.
Are they gonna have a choice, or are we gonna tell them?
So we are going to tell them what are going to be the learning management systems we're going to adopt that are approved by the state, because we have to somehow pay for it eventually. And at the same time, so that we can make sure that we have enough support to train them. So we're going to be the ones choosing the elementary platform and the secondary platform.
The short answer to your question is no. The state has not completed the LMS. What they said today's Zoom meeting is to expect more information specifically on Thursday about that. That's how fast it. I mean, it's been ongoing for a while, and so they expect in 48 hours to have some more information about the LMS.
We're still going through webinars. We're ready, different districts to go through webinars and then to have a vote.
Anybody else?
We have one more point, sir. The last point. Two more.
Hello? Hello?
Just back in the spring, one of the greatest challenges for school districts to do remote learning was not having a one-to-one initiative. We had one, so we were able to put a lot of devices in kids' hands. Although we do have an issue with the digital divide as far as internet capabilities. So that being said, just because we could give a kid a device doesn't mean that the internet they have, especially in our rural areas and especially with some of our local students, they may not have access. So we anticipated that back in the spring of when we did our bond, we have money to actually make purchases of Chromebooks. And so we actually put in a board and asked the board to purchase 7,000 Chromebooks this summer. So we're about to get that. Unfortunately, the whole world was ordering Chromebooks, and so we're still dealing with that market trend right now of trying to get our Chromebooks. They've been sent to the place that they'll image them, and so hopefully we'll have those before school starts. Because we would like to allow, especially when we get into when we have remote learning and face-to-face, and there's a hybrid, especially high school, if they're hybrid, those students would want to come in a couple of days and then go home. So we may not want them to take the device and keep the device. We prevent that issue when we try to have kids take them home to class. So we would have one in the classrooms, and then you can have one at home. We actually ordered 1,600 more hotspots. So if you put them up, there's 800 in there right now. So those are actually coming in. We're surprised that we're getting those, and so we'll be over 2,300 hotspots that we'll be able to dish out to students that are in need of it. This spring we only had 400. We were able to meet the needs, and so hopefully having extra hotspots will help with the students and get rid of that divide. I know the state is working with other sources to allow cheaper rates for families, like they did in the spring, to extend those. And so we'll continue to push that information out to parents. I know attendance is another thing, and I know that we were talking about the different modalities of learning. So by in the spring, we were given kind of a pass on attendance. Send them home, and the student can work on Monday and Tuesday, and they wouldn't count against us as far as revenue. I'm going to cover that in the next section on budget, most of that, on how that looks as far as ADA. But they're not giving us that pass anymore. We're going to have to really, on a daily basis, take attendance somehow, whether it's through, we talked about physically taking attendance because the kids were in a face-to-face environment, or they're in the synchronous environment, or asynchronous kind of format.
No, other than Adrian Ramirez is working hand in hand with Billy Terrazas and Celine, so that we can really identify what that looks like for us, because it will be very different in different scenarios. And so the state has been very clear on ways that we have to do that, and if it's going to count for us. And so we're just trying to work through that. There's also a social emotional component. Do you want to cover that really well?
I know that we're bringing to the board later on the Panorama, which is going to be an excellent program. And so the social emotional piece has been just as important as the academic. And so we are going to be focusing on a daily basis, synchronously. We're going to be offering some guidance and counseling lessons. We want to make sure that we just mentioned this as a board. We know the academics is important, but right now also crucially the social emotional piece. As the Panorama is going to allow us to get some guidance lessons very specific to the topic. And at the same time, the Panorama, we're going to be able to log in and track the needs of the students. So we have a student that continues to clean some things, and we are able to track them. And right now, our online platforms that we use is not easy for us to be able to track those needs. So this is why we're going to be doing a little bit about that in the Panorama.
Can I ask a quick question on the social emotional thing? Are we gonna, I know our teachers, we kind of train them and give them support on how to recognize child abuse, right? Because they're the biggest reporters, right? And so since the children have not been in the classroom, the reports to CPS have just like tanked. It's not that child abuse is not going on, it's just that nobody's reporting it because nobody's seeing it. So maybe give the teacher some kind of message or some kind of training on how it would look just seeing them from, like what how, you know what, I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but they are our number one reporters and they're the number one protectors of our children, and they're not able to do that right now. And so I don't know how that would look to them only seeing their children work, you know, through that.
Great point.
So, right, on August 18th is going to be our district meeting, and we're going to be setting aside some time for this particular.
Awesome. Thank you.
Not only talking about the program, but there's potential things that we
Okay.
So the final thing, and I think we live in this contingency planning for tomorrow, right? Our contingency planning seems like it changes daily. And really this is about what happens when, right? Obviously we'll follow the guidance from our national, state, and local. That will trump anything in that we plan. And we've seen that happen time and time ago. We will have district and campus expectations that we'll put forth. We will have student expectations and staff expectations. And when we say contingency planning, and I was really true to my core in that I feel like we live in that world right now where we're just always planning something different. It really is about what happens when we have a student at campus A that is diagnosed with COVID. What do we do for that population in that classroom, that campus, that hallway, and how does that impact the district, right? And so we will be working through that with Mark and Val, Will Baker, Brandon, Jalila. All of us have that in the back of our mind always about what is going to happen when, because it's going to happen. I know that we are also looking to assimilate our students and our faculty back to this environment of coming back to work. And so that will be a big topic for our staff meeting tomorrow with our employees. But we will have considerations that we're going to have to make for people that are in compromised medical conditions of particular age groups with hard times at home. You know, so there will be those things that we have to work through. And we will be producing some guidelines for principals to make decisions around that. The first two are very clear. You've got COVID, you're taking care of someone with COVID. The third component is I don't have daycare. Feel comfortable coming to work. So we were going to be working with Will's team, which has several principals and several teachers on that committee to kind of design a guideline and a framework for how principals are going to have to make those choices. And of course, as always, central office will be there to help them make those decisions so that we make it in the best possible way for our employees. And so that's what we have for tonight as far as our 5-point plan, which still looks like it's 6, and maybe I pulled the wrong one into my flash drive. It has changed literally like 6 times today, so I don't know if I got the right draft. But we thank you for your attention and just want to open it up right now if you'll have any questions. Oh, did you want to cover the timeline, Wade?
So I think we try to put right here, and I really want to emphasize the fluidness of this. We start this morning as our 6-point plan. We are able to move some things around to make it easier to kind of talk about the big rocks. And now we're going to take these big rocks and expand them out. That's the stages of construction behind it. So what we plan to do, because we're still in the taking information out, trying to frame people's thinking around what we're looking at, statistics, that capture information. We're going to have an opportunity tomorrow. We're doing a town hall for Southwest ISD teachers and staff to tune in. What we want to do is kind of frame what we're thinking about. Prior to that, we sent an email out to staff. We already have over 200 questions, so we know there's a lot of questions. We know we'll probably get that many more tomorrow. The idea is we're giving information, we're asking for input, we're collecting that input, we're taking that input. We're going to create a FAQ for our staff. We're going to embed the concerns or ideas or thoughts into the overall plan. We're doing that through the task force, but we also think that we can do that with people being able to close that information on their own as well. So we're also conducting the town hall for elementary parents. That's going to be on the 23rd, where we're going to give information, bring this off, and provide the parents an opportunity to ask questions, provide us information that they want to see included in the plan. And then again, Friday we have a town hall for our secondary parents as well. You can see we're going to keep doing this for our principal meeting every week, cover this information they're critical to be a part of the information we get. And then we have the board meeting today. We have our virtual administrative retreat on July 31st. Where this plan is going to be a big part of that. We have our remote school launch, first day of school, the 24th. Then we have the face-to-face, this here on the 21st. We changed that after we had a meeting with our local ISD partners. And everyone's kind of set the calendar around after that Labor Day. Honestly, between us, we fully expect that to be extended. But right now, that's the date that's out there. That would be to kind of stay in alignment with and working with, I think, our other local partners. I think is important right now. We have a lot to learn from each other. One thing that we didn't mention that as we have a conversation at our level and state level is offering, providing an opportunity for the children of teachers, some form of daycare status, because we know that the quality of remote instruction is so much better classrooms than it is at home. But we know that if we can provide that as a state for school-age children or teachers, that will have more teachers able to deliver a higher quality teaching learning. So there's nothing set in stone yet for the conversation. I know we have a Region 20 today, and we're going to keep having. We got some direction on it, and so we're going to keep working towards that. We'll probably have more information on that next week. So we expect to bring it to the ground back to
Just it might be an ignorant question, but how do they get on the town hall meeting? How do they participate in the town hall meeting?
There's a link sent out. Sent out to staff like the day before, and then there's another link that Ms. Hernandez, I don't know if she's on the meeting right now.
I'm here.
You want to answer that question better, Jenna?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Yes, sir. So the way we're conducting the town halls for the staff, it's an internal town hall. So we're using Zoom and YouTube. And that email has gone out to staff on links on how they can get access to the town hall. And then for our community, I'll be sending a link tonight for both YouTube and Zoom again on how they can join and be able to see all the panelists and kind of see the presentation.
How are you sending it?
We're sending it through social media, through Remind, and email.
Okay, so it's on our Facebook page.
No, not yet. I'm working on
No,
that.
I mean, it's going to be on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right.
Thank you,
So-
Jana.
So that's where we are today. Tomorrow by noon, if you ask to change, that's one thing I can promise. But I think we have a really good start. We have some really great exemplars throughout the state that TEA shared with districts today that we definitely are going to use some of their thinking. That it looks really good. So we think we can get there as well for the next couple of weeks.
One quick question, and that was, is it fair to say that at least in Region 20 or maybe San Antonio, the school districts will be aligned or very close to aligned, or will they be some that are doing something different?
I would say it's fair to say that we are working in collaborative fashion, and that currently everyone is making decisions to align very close. We know the importance of that. We know the importance of we go further together. But everyone has the governing board to present to it and get ideas from people. But yeah, short answer, yes, we do understand that.
All right, we go
I know
back.
it's a long one, sir, but that's a very important one. It'll probably be our whole brown bag.
All right, the next thing is K, budget update.
I'll go ahead. So part of some of the slides I did put in here some stuff for the modalities to give you an idea about how budget's turning out and what we're having to do. I'm going to hit some of the highlights. I know that we've got a lot of time on the last topic, so I'll try to hit the highlights and get you through it. Really, the main thing that came out from the commissioner and TEA was how we were going to fund students that choose remote learning. We know the laws and the weights for the students who actually come in and we take attendance on a daily basis, but the way the life has changed, we know that we're going to have students that are going to choose remote learning, whether COVID completely disappears for some crazy reason or not. I think that most people across the district, the state, and the nation know that there's going to be some students that are still going to choose whatever reason to stay home. And so the ADA calculation is really going to depend on the method of instructional delivery. So face-to-face, there's a way for that. Synchronous, there's going to be a way that they're going to grade that as far as ADA. And then if it's synchronous, they'll be able to take attendance just like they were if they were in a classroom. I will say this, that's something that we are looking at, and those district leaders are looking at this. If any students that were enrolled in private school or homeschooled in 1920 last year, they're not eligible for funding through remote instruction if they come and join Southwest ISD. And so we could add extra students, and they would, if they're doing remote learning, they would not count for our ADA. And so that's something that we are.
But we can't turn them away, right?
We cannot turn them away, but they will not count for us for ADA. And so I don't know really why they chose that, but I think that's something that we probably can talk about.
That doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't.
The point that we argued as superintendent, and I think PA looked like we went through a response to their response to that question today. I'm going to tell you, I look at one of the exemplar models, and what they're offering is students who are coming from private or homeschool that do not qualify remotely for ADA. They're only offering face-to-face opportunities when they open up. Then you qualify. You can't go from a homeschool or private school or homeschool environment to a full remote legislative that you can't receive funding, you can't go to those. But if you go to a district face-to-face, then they qualify for funding. So that's how one example is.
And that's the topic that I just wanted to know that, so, because I know there's people out there say, well, the homeschool students and all these private school students may come to public school. At this time, ADA-wise, it will not help the district as far as residents get over face-to-face.
But are they funding the private school though? Are they funding them separately on their own, or?
Private schools are funded.
Tuition. So they're not doing any type, yeah. Okay.
So schools must offer in-person instructional daily. That's the ruling that came out. There's some exceptions. And obviously the first exception is the first 4 weeks of school, they're allowing districts to kind of trickle people back in. And now we have an ordinance from our local health officials saying that we can't put in our schools until after September 8th. But we have to offer instructional on a daily basis unless there's a school closure by state law, the governor or somebody of that sort, or there's partial or complete closure of schools that's been operating, so we can shut down. There's some standards on that that won't affect us. And I'm talking strictly, this is all about ADA and how we can get funding. And then I already talked about the first 4 weeks. And then if a student commits to remote instruction and chooses the asynchronous or the remote learning platform, that won't impact us. And they choose that, but we have to offer instruction on a campus every day after those first 4 weeks. And so if a student wants it, we have to offer it, and we take the attendance that we normally would. And so there's some calculations. I'm not going to cover that. There is a home harmless provision, which I stated that they are not going to, like they gave us a pass in the spring on ADA, so we didn't have to take attendance. We still have to take attendance the first 6 weeks and the second 6 weeks. Where if we see a drop in our ADA, but like 1% compared to what we had this past year in the first 6 weeks to the second 6 weeks, they will use last year's numbers to maintain that. Two things are happening though. One, after that third week, it'll start impacting us. And so if we don't have great attendance records and our plan's not working, we need to make sure it works, because when it comes to the third 6 weeks, then they'll hold us accountable for that ADA. So that whole promise goes away. The other part of this, if we choose asynchronous, we have to submit a plan to the state, and we already submitted a letter of intent, but we have to submit that plan by the 36 weeks, or we stop losing ADA for that. And so those are some key things about ADA that we need to have. So if we have any unapproved construction plans by that point for the synchronous, we would lose ADA funding. So we have to make sure that's in place. Kind of just some updates on the calendar where we are looking at today. I'll give you an update. On the 25th of August, I'll have a budget in front of you, and we'll have a public hearing for our tax rate. August 4th meeting, bring a compensation plan. I'm going to talk briefly about that today, so that we can adopt our compensation plan. Whether we're given an increase or not, we still have to adopt the 2020-2021 compensation plan. It stay the same, or if we add anything. And then I'll give you another budget update at that time.
Are you going to send all these dates out to us?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The key to this year's budget going into 2021 is you always use your historical trends. You look at your trend data on enrollment, you look at your trend data on ADA, you look at all your FTEs and all your special populations, and you try to determine what that's going to look like next year. That's been a challenge. And so it was a challenge just figuring out what our trend data is for 19 and 20, because we lost those, the last 6 weeks of data. And the last 6 weeks of data usually is a trend downward for us, where students are either transitioning out, or for whatever reason, our ADA goes down. And so what I've done mostly is I've kept the data that we created this year with, so what they had to do is you take your first 4 or 6 weeks, and then you take the last 6 weeks and you discount those and you use previous year. And so we came up with a formula there to get our trend data for this past year. And so instead of trying to project a trend that we don't know what's going to happen, I've maintained that same data for 2021. So I don't have us losing enrollment, but I don't have us gaining enrollment. Not sure how conservative or liberal that is. I know I talk to some districts, they're maintaining the same thing I'm doing, and some districts are lowering their data. I think it's something that we have to watch and monitor as we adopt the budget and as we go forward. Preliminary values, our certified values come out this Saturday on July 25th. That's a big deal because that'll let us set our tier 1 tax rate for the M&O side. One thing I talked about when we talked about tax collection, and Larry wanted to ask me where we at on tax collection. So that's a big deal because that's our revenue that we're getting in. Normally we trend about 99.5% of collection by the end of the year. So we collect 99.5% of all our taxes. And so I have to set that budget. So if I budgeted all 100%, I know that I'm not going to get all 100%. So that's the part that I'm watching right now. I set it at this point for next year to just be at 99%. I may go a little lower, which will drive our revenue down. It's just going to see how we end up at the end of this year. We don't know how the market's going to do as far as people that they have gotten bankrupt or trying to go pay their taxes because they lost a job. So those factors could be in play on the tax rate. So that could impact our collection rate. And so I wanted to share that with you. But I am maintaining a 99% for next year right now in this year's budget. But I'll continue to look at it as we finish up this year. I really won't have any trend data until we get a full year of being in COVID and being with the market where it's at today. So our budget assumptions, so as I built the revenue on how much revenue we're going to get, I looked at maintaining our same ADA that we had at the end of this year, 12,521. So that's what I'm using for our projection. ADA is a bigger driver of our revenue from the foundation program. Currently, it looks at our taxable value will be about $4 billion. So it's up a little bit. It grew a lot, and it's kind of steadily stayed right in that same area. And so I'm using the 99% collection rate. And so right now, calculating the M&O rate, which is what I'm doing on my end, but the state's going to calculate our tier 1 rate. So I'll know that more once we get our certified values. But it looks like our M&O rate is going to be $1.21, and then if you add in our INS rate, which is our debt payment, our debt rate, that's 0.438. So that'll be a rate of $1.45. Right now ours is $1.47. So it should go down based on the estimated values. And so I'll know more by August 4th once we work through this.
Well, that'll give us 2 cents back.
Yes, sir. So there is I brought this up last time and I want to talk about it now. There is a funding lag. I have to discuss this with you at 2 meetings because of our first rating. I have to share with you that the state changed from prior year values to new year values. The reason why prior year values were important or different is it helped us in the formula. So it was a negative and a positive. For us, it's always been a positive because our values have grown. So we always took advantage for the extra revenue until they found out that we got more money, our values went up. So next year they lowered our foundation. Some districts declined in value, and they're the ones that really were up and had issues with it because as their values declined, the foundation side of the state didn't make up for that. So they had a negative impact of what was going on with them. So I wanted to share that with you because we're supposed to in an open meeting. Now to really the meat of it. So I wanted to share this is our tier 1 and our tier 2. So this is our foundation. So our total foundation M&O this current year, I'm estimating us to be at about $91 million. Our collection rate at 99.5 put us at 38. So our M&O budget, just with taxes and with the foundation for this school year, is tracking about 130 million. Now we have other revenue sources for investments. We had some. We collect funds for revenue and sporting events. So we have some local stuff that's us. But these are the major buckets of funds that we have. Using the same data that we have right now ending this year, what I'm maintaining, we're able to, because of the mechanism in House Bill 3, there's still some compression and things going on. We're actually going to get more funds because our values did go up. So we look at our taxes. So we're going to collect a little bit more taxes, and our foundation is actually going to go up. So we're going to receive an extra, looks around $3 million going into next year's budget. That's if everything works out ADA wise. If we have no issues and we have no lower ADA and other populations. I will say some of the foundation stuff that we're seeing a rise in the foundation is in our special ops CTE budgets. Was actually projected better. Special ed, we have a bigger budget now with more funds in that. So it's really specific where this extra revenue is actually making up comp ed. In our comp ed, our at-risk students, our equal risk numbers, and based on the tiers, we receive more funding for those students. On the INS side, you can see that on the state aid, we got about 2.7 million. We collected about 16.5 million for a total INS revenue of 19.2, which is so everybody knows we made all our debt payments this year. Just we paid the last one today. So that's a big deal for us when we want to go out for bonds. That's the main question: you make your mortgage payment, and so that's a big deal to me for sure. And you want to do a bond again. Next year, our debt payment is actually a little bit more. That's why we really think to press the debt rate at all, because this next year we owe about 19.8 million in debt payment. And so you'll see that's our EDA and IFA, and then that's what we need to collect to make our debt payment. So we just try to make sure we get enough money to pay our payment based on what we're getting from the state and taxes. So if you want to see it here, this is the EDA, so we're getting in the EDA for the state and the IFA. So we get a little bit more money in IFA. It's just 2 buckets of money that they be used to the state pays into our payment. So as we move forward, and as I told you, we are getting about $3 more million next year if everything works out with those projections. We do have some stuff that's going on across the district. We had some staff in Cass High School because they're getting a junior cohort. We have some other campus needs, different campuses across the district may need a teacher here or there. And so I didn't break them all down, but this is like one here. It's not specific to any. Legacy probably had the most because they had the most growth. The Autism Academy, that's coming off a grant, so we need to pick that up in our funding. And then we have a few district positions that have been established that weren't budgeted for this year that we added that will be into next year's budget. So right now, just the new staff across the district is about 1.4 out of that, where I'm seeing the 3 million that we have. But I want to also bring up that I'm still working through these. I don't know if you can take that little box off there. We're going to have some extra expenses on overtime that we did this year. Substitute costs. And then really supplies, creating a supply budget that can meet the needs of all the things that we're talking about, dividers. And we're going to purchase some of those now, but as we get, depending on how long this thing lasts, we may have to keep replenishing hand sanitizer. Just pricing that can be anywhere between $20,000 for or just a pump at every classroom. Well, everybody had a gallon of it, and then replenishing that over time. So we may have some increases in transportation as we look at tiers and trying to get if we have social distance on buses. We may run buses longer during this time and face to face, and when we come back. And technology, obviously, we're buying more hotspots. That's going to be a cost every month. And then the one group that's gonna I will share with you that's going to take a hit this year will be food service child nutrition's budget. And so I'm anticipating that they're going to spend a lot of their fund balance that they has built up this summer because of the losses of the revenue that food service gets from serving so many students during the year. We still pay for all the staff. And if this occurs and we don't have as many kids coming to get meals, we still have all the staff. So that may be an area that the general fund budget may have to supplement the child nutrition budget so that we can maintain them. So where I'm at overall, when I talked about the extra revenue based on what we do as a district, we're about 139 million. And then the proposed expenditures is about 139 million. So I have about 600,000 right now that is actually on the positive side, but I haven't budgeted for these other items that I just talked about for COVID and supplies. So I may throw some extra budget on safety in different areas. I want to talk briefly about compensation because we've been trying to figure out what other districts are doing. For the most part, I know that most districts are not adding right now because not necessarily because of the funding this year, but more of the funding next year. Anticipating what the next biennium is going to do as far as if they cut the budget. I know they came out and the projections for the losses in Texas were a lot worse than they actually predicted. I know that came out a couple of days ago. I wanted to share our scale. Our scale is very competitive. On August 4th, I'll bring you comparisons to where everybody's at. I'm trying to make sure everybody's on the same page if they're not getting a raise. So we can show comparable rates, apples to apples, so you can see where we are comparable to everybody else. And there's people giving raises. Some may give a raise that are they weren't competitive with it anyways. And so I want to make sure we have that data for you. Everybody's kind of holding off, but I think for the most part, there's a consensus that this is not a good time to do another raise since we just did a substantial one last year. I will talk about one thing that normally when we do a 0%, nothing happens, and we fix the scale. And so what I make this year, that's what I make next year. So if you take that first year's teacher who makes 54,625, I know it's not going to be a lot, but the next year I would expect to make 54,725 because I have year experience. We froze and we didn't do anything. We moved the scale so that somebody 0 to 1 made the same thing. I didn't increase to get that. So that's something I'll keep looking at and run the numbers. I did run the numbers to do that. It's about if we allow teachers, librarians, and nurses get their step, it's about 470,000 to the budget. Which, I mean, that's something that we've discussed, but there's some other options. So I put that there, 470,000. We did a TASB study. So there's some positions where if we do the TASB study that we're going to bring and talk about that are below market. So we look at all those positions and comparable to 10% below market that we might want to fix and take a look at. And then possible retention to, depending on how the budget works out and expenses. I wouldn't put a number on it yet, but I may bring it into the plan to always go back and look at it and then bring a number to you later when I get actual good revenue to see what we could do, maybe another retention. I know we've done that for the last 2 years around Christmas time. And so that may be a possible compensation consideration. So there's really 3 choices right now. And then we can also, I mean, at the end of the day, if we want to do a 2 or 3%, I could put that number in there. But normally when we get a 3%, you're talking $2 million that the budget, which would put us over at this point where I'm tracking. And so last item I want to share is our fund balance. I always share this with you just so you know we're, as far as our 3 months of 5, we're in good shape. We have some projects that we've already approved that we've been working through. One big one on there that I will share is the natatorium. I put that on there so we can track it, so you know that that's committed until we get reimbursed. But for the most part, we're going to get reimbursed for those buses, and then we have some other smaller projects. And remember, some of the natatorium, because of the market, we were able to mitigate those fund balance issues that we want to face for that project. That's all I have. if you have questions, on August 4th, I'll present more to you on budget, better projections, let's keep working through it, and then, compensation recommendations, so we can finish off the budget, and bring it to you and get it adopted around August 25th. And I should have more tax rate information too. So that,
You said something about a meeting July 25th. Did you mean August 25th?
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. August
Okay.
25th. At the end of August, we have to approve
Right.
the public hearing. Approve the,
I just thought you said July and so
No,
it kind
I'm
of threw
sorry.
me
Yeah, I
off.
should-
Okay.
August 25th. So the 4th to the 25th. Yes, sir.
Are we waiting till the 25th because we have to wait that long? Because we have a meeting the week before.
Well, I have to have a public hearing. So you have a meeting before that. I just don't know if I'll be completely done with the budget by then. So if I can get some more compensation in there, we're getting, the difference between this year and last year, I could have probably done it sooner, but the state is setting our tax rate. And so they're gonna go all the way to probably before in August at some point. And then once I get that, there's a window that I have to put the public hearing in the paper to get it. So I'm shooting for the 25th, and depending on that window that I need to have it out in paper, it may push a little. I just need it before end of August. I have to have a budget done. I will probably have it done by the 20th. It just depends on that timeline for the public hearing.
Anybody else?
You've done one great job.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon.
Our last item of information, Mr. President, is item L, Bear County School Board Coalition, a letter to the governor. And I know that Mr. Vasquez and Mr. Montegarza Lopez have been working with the Bear County Coalition. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Yolanda Garza Lopez, who's going to cover this item.
So just very briefly, the Bear County Coalition had a couple of Zoom meetings, and basically they wanted to talk a little bit about how different education groups are reaching out to the governor in regards to push back on the plans for reopening. A lot of different groups have been making their wishes known, or their wanted to give feedback, I guess. And there were parent groups, there were student groups, there was union groups, superintendent groups that were sending letters in to the governor and the commissioner. And Bear County Coalition basically felt like it would behoove us to also chime in on the things that we felt were important in order to best deal with the challenges that we've been facing over the last several months. So in getting together, the Bear County Coalition came up with 4 points that they felt were very important, and all of them tie in with the idea of the fact that we're representatives, that we're elected representative officials of communities that we serve, and that all these points give us the flexibility and the space to make local decisions when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. So I passed around a letter. So the Bear County Coalition created a letter, and that was sent in to the governor last Wednesday. And Mr. Blount, the president, had had asked the individual districts if they could create a separate letter and send it in just in support. And so I just took the liberty of rewriting and reiterating the points on the main letter, but this would be coming directly from our district. And the 4 points are they're pretty, easy to understand. Flexibility to determine if and which of the schools can open and how and when online instruction can be provided. To determine any timelines associated with school openings. Revenue and expenditure discretion to manage the district budgets. And the last one, facilitating and funding a robust school-based testing infrastructure. So these were basically the 4 asks that Bear County Coalition felt were important that we make known to the governor and the commissioner. So the letter from Southwest ISD is very similar. I just shortened it a little bit, made a few changes, reiterated and supported the one that Bobby sent. And thank you. And if we can just sign, we can send it in. Any questions?
I think everybody signed it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
There's going to be a Zoom meeting, I believe,
Tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow at 6.
Yeah, the rest of the board members getting that email.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think the item number 4 came from the Southwest group. I think it's a really great ask, and it's about if we're gonna ask our teachers to be in certain places, we can give them the support infrastructure to have accessibility to testing. They so feel. I think it's a really great ask. So it's really great to have the Southwest ISD collective voice to the Bear County School Board voice. The more people hear from us, the better decisions we make. So I think we're asking for local opportunity here.
Anything else?
Not on that item, is that it?
All right, the next thing is the superintendent, and we will postpone item A and B. And I think Sylvester has item C.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about, this is a seat that I once held many moons ago. Currently, we have 4 directors, CASB directors at Region 20. And they are currently Karen from Northside, Sandy from Northeast, Robert from Church Civil University, and then the one that's up for re-election is Belinda, who's in Kerrville, not the same thing. That said, someone that I've been working with for about a year now, I've known him for about 3 years, is J.D. Rodriguez. If you read about him and Belinda, you got 2 letters coming from them. JD is I've been sort of mentoring him. He is going through CASB leadership right now. He is from Dilley ISD. He's a sergeant in Texas DPS. He would be, if elected, the only of the 4 south of San Antonio. Region 20, for those of you that are wondering what it covers all San Antonio, which is about 16 school districts. Church Civil University left Region 13 about 2-3 years ago and joined Region 20. And then there's Kerrville. And then there's about 35 school districts that are south of us, all the way down to Eagle Pass, that are represented by Region 20. So I'd like to give my support and to J.D. Rodriguez.
Do we have any others that we want to talk about? Can everybody give their vote to him?
I'll make that motion. That we support J.D.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carried. Moving on to item 8, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir. I'd like to just be able to inform the board the next 2 items. The first one, A, under Human Resources, consider approval alternate health plan. I believe this is what was mentioned in the public comments today. I want to apologize to the trustees. There was a human error at the brown bag where we had 2 board action items, one being this item and the next one being the very next item that you're going to hear tonight. You did have a motion to take a vote on this item after we found out the same day that we had lost the linkage between the virtual site for public to view that brown bag board meeting, special board meeting, and also the telephone site that kind of sought out legal opinion from one of our attorneys to make sure that what we did was in concert. And the information that I received from legal is that best practice would be to put these items back on the very next board meeting, which is tonight. But the fact that the board took an action doesn't negate that action. So we were able to move forward. But as a either Dr. Fay or Mr. Baker, who can go back over that information for the board. I would also like to add that at that July 14th meeting, we did post in our notice that if anyone wanted to speak to either one of the two items we were talking about, to please let us know by that Monday, just like we do every meeting that we're doing virtually. And I want to add that no one did sign up to speak to either one of these items as well. But we do want to do the best practice and bring it back tonight. So I know, Will, you want to just say a few minutes? This is that providing our employees and alternate interns, and I'll let Will speak a few minutes to that and go back over it.
As you remember, we went through the process where we amended our DOI, our district innovation plan, so we could go out and seek an alternative place for our employees. Our site-based management team recommended it, ratified that amendment, and so we were able to go out and look at some plans, and Humana came to us and they offered us what we think is a really great fully funded plan, an alternative that we would offer in conjunction with the TRS plan. We will also offer the TRS plan, and showed you those rates at the last meeting. We'll offer in most cases substantial savings to our employees, and we feel like the kinds of benefits they're offering also better offered by the people. So we're asking you again to consider that and let us offer that to our employees.
I move.
I second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Going down to business and finance, Mr. Superintendent A.
Yes, sir. A is the consider adoption of Education Service Center Region 19 Allied State Cooperative Interlocal Agreement Resolution. That is basically the entity that we can access to provide this alternate insurance to our employees. And so there is no cost to the district, but we're asking again to allow us to have a resolution to join that cooperative. So that's our ask here tonight. I don't know if Mr. Chris wants to speak.
Next Education allows us to join the local agreement. So it helps us take advantage not only on this product and this service, but we can use it for other services that they offer. The many districts involved in local agreements and cooperatives, it increases our buying power, sources where we don't have to spend funds to put out ads, and RFP takes a lot of work putting together those documents. So our recommendation is to improve the local agreement for the Education Service Center 19 Allied State Cooperative through a resolution.
I move.
Second. Motion's been made and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Business and finance B.
Yes, sir. Item B is award of our insurance agent, RFQ 1920-125. And I'd like to turn that back over to Mr. Chris. And I think are you going to go over every one of these?
Yes. Yeah, I can go over those.
I'll just introduce each one separately.
Our insurance agent RFQ came to an end, and so we released another RFQ to seek services and fully certified and licensed insurance agent to provide us services and guidance and training, stop inside the D. So we released a request for proposal, and we had 3 vendors submit: USI Southwest, Frost and Brown. And we went through the process to determine qualifications. And so the professional fees will be utilized from locally budgeted funds. That would be the fiscal impact. And I am recommending that the board approve Frost Insurance for the contract for RFQ 1920-125 insurance agent.
Questions?
I move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Business and finance C.
Yes, sir. Tonight, we're asking the board to take a look at the property next to the transportation department. This is a property that's the Union Pacific is reaching out to us to purchase. They're trying to add another track so they can add like a waiting line so that they can pass by. And so we've gone and kind of negotiated pricing And so we have reviewed their proposal and we agree with their amount from a district perspective. And we're asking the board to agree to the purchase of the sale of the property to Union Pacific at a rate of $28,770. And that's at 0.22 acres,
That's by the bus barn?
right next to the bus barn. And the value there is a little lower because we're going to have another one here in a minute, comparable in size, but it's next to the railroad track, and that's what drove down and kind of the price of that.
Okay.
Move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. D,
Yes, sir. Sauls is looking for an easement that runs through the back part of Sun Valley. There is an issue we're having there with the sewer and a manhole. And so in order to fix that, we need to sell them an easement. So they would run a new line there and run it to another manhole. And so this is 0.21 acres of land. And so for the purchase of the easement, they're offering us $56,200. And we're recommending that the board approve this purchase or this sale to Sauls for $56,200 to help us mitigate the issue we're having there with the sewer line.
I move.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E,
Yes, sir. Tonight we're bringing consider approval of the guaranteed maximum price for the Scully Middle School project. The contractor is Bartlett Kopp and the architect is Garza Baumberger. They've been working together on the bid process for this project. And tonight, they're here, they're not here, but they came up with a proposal to get us to GMP, and that GMP is at $10,855,132. This will be funded by the 2018 bond. I will tell you that the budget was $11 million, so we're about $126,000 under budget. And that's including contingency and all fees.
I'll go over this.
We're asking the board to approve the
I
guaranteed
don't
maximum price for Scobie Middle School renovation project not to exceed the amount of $10,855,132 and allow us to negotiate terms and conditions on the GMP.
I move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
This is a project, so that the public knows that you all have discussed and we've vetted for many,
Yeah.
many months.
Mhm.
So this is the culminating event of that. And nothing from that final scope has changed at all.
Right.
Actually, we have everything that we wanted in there.
Plus
Like all the stuff that when we walk.
the library and stuff. Mm-hmm. Great.
Item F,
This purchase is, I want to talk about, this is really to help mitigate our social distancing in the classroom. So we are looking to make purchases of bins in all our elementary classrooms. And what this will do is it'll keep kids from going to their cubbies. Currently, they put all their supplies in their cubbies. And even in middle schools, some kids use lockers and they use backpacks and things. And so for kids to be able to put stuff under their desk, we're going to make a purchase. We don't know what that cost is. We put $250,000 on here because we're going to have to shop around. There's quite a few bins to purchase. And so we have all the vendors that we're going to look at. All these vendors are either on a cooperative that we're a part of. I don't think we'll be able to purchase from one. I'm sure a lot of districts are doing the same thing that we're doing. This is a purchase that will probably be in line with some other purchases when we come back to you to allow us to go out and procure these things. But we wanted to get a not to exceed amount so that we can go ahead and move forward because we're going to be pressed for time and we do come back face to face.
So the idea is that the kids don't leave their desk for anything?
Well, not to go get supplies and not to go get their books. And so at least at their desk, instead of them having, this part of social distancing is, you're in your classroom, but if you have kids having to get up to go get stuff, that's when you really run into those issues. And so to help mitigate that, we want to make a purchase to put all their supplies in their desk underneath them. Hopefully mitigate that.
I don't know how we're going to keep them in their desks all day. I just don't know.
Well, the idea, part of the plan, I think that's
It's a
something we
good
need to
idea.
discuss.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea. I'm just trying to picture the kids in their desk all day.
So the
Get them to cooperate now.
Yeah.
The recommendation of the board is to approve the purchase of the safety and sanitation storage units for student materials not to exceed $250,000.
need a motion?
I move. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to item 10, curriculum and instruction. A.
Item A, we're going, in item B, actually, we're going to be asking for a contract renewal. I know we have Mr. Leila Garcia, who's going to take item A of the first contract for occupational therapy services.
Yes, I do have Rob who is available and ready to speak on this point.
Good evening. How are y'all?
Rob.
Good, thank you.
Back in 2018-19, a solicitation for proposals was advertised and opened for occupational therapy services. At the time, two companies were granted, and that was Soylent Health and Ardor Health. And at the same time, the option to extend the contracts for 2 additional years was approved. At this time, we're asking for the final year extension to be approved for these two companies, and the cost of the services for occupational therapy for 2021 will not exceed $110,000.
Questions?
I move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B.
This is our service agreement, Rob, with the San Antonio ISD for the regional day school for hearing impaired for the deaf.
Yes, last year, the South San Regional Day School for the Deaf was disbanded, and we entered into an agreement with San Antonio ISD to provide this service. There isn't an RFP associated with this process. It's a TEA process we go through that we follow to disband the South San and join the San Antonio ISD. So at this time, we're asking that we continue with San Antonio ISD and their regional day school for the deaf. And just so you'll know, the cost is different per year, and it depends on how many students. This past year, we paid about $11,300 per student, and we ended up with 9 students at the day school. At the South San, we were paying about $30,000 per student, and the reason for that is just because the SAISD is so much bigger. What the state is doing now is they're going to bigger groups because it's hard to pay for the smaller groups like when we were in South San ISD. So we're asking that the board approve our agreement to continue to work with SAISD and serve our students' deaf needs.
I move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item C, Mr. President, consider approval of the contract renewal for speech therapy services, RFP 1516-011. Can you cover that, Rob?
Yes, this is similar to the occupational therapy RFP that was posted. At that time, 3 companies were approved with the ability to extend the contracts up to additional years. This would also be the final year of an extension if approved. And the companies that we're asking for are Speech Specialists of San Antonio and TechStar Speech Language Service. And the total amount for that would be no more than $400,000. At the time, there was 3 companies that were approved. The other company that was approved wasn't able to find the staff. So we've gone to just these 2 companies.
Questions?
I move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D.
Go ahead. A motion that we're going to have Mr. Figueroa speak to. This kind of goes back to part of the social emotional learning, the SEL we're looking at, and we have some, I think, really tremendous people doing some great things in that whole SEL umbrella, and Ms. Adrian and Ms. Benavides, who are also working with our challenging students and our 504 students. And what they have found over time is that we have so much information all over, but we don't have a kind of a one-stop shop. And this is where Panorama, I think, would be able to help in the SEL and providing really great access for the adults to access information that's pertinent for some of our students. So I turn it over to Mr. Figueroa.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
Wanted to give kudos, as Dr. Verso mentioned, to a group that we've been putting together this whole past year to deal with Senate Bill 11 requirements for threat assessment, trauma-informed care, and also suicide prevention awareness. So that group has been the core that has been moving forward with looking for resources, products, and training that we can roll out to our staff. The Southwest Cares Group is made up of different individuals from departments, from police department, social workers, community partnerships, and we began this research a while back, looking at something that's compatible with what we currently have. On here with me, I have Adrian Ramirez and Luis Gonzalez that are looking at the work that we did. Be short and sweet. Adrian, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Sir.
Okay. So Southwest ISD utilizes a variety of programs to identify and support students with at-risk academic, behavioral, and social emotional needs. These programs, however, are not all compatible with the current student information system to allow for full integration in the development of monitoring and intervention student support plans. It is also difficult to compile comprehensive student support plans from all of the various programs that are used to collect data as they work from different technology platforms. The Panorama actually provides for the integration of these programs. And so we have, I believe Luis is going to share some additional information that supports the SEL efforts in our district.
Yes, sir. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. And yes, I will provide a little bit more information on that as far as the full integration with our SIS or our teams frontline, along with several programs like iStation, Eduphoria, College Board. And so this allowing us to create a better and a full picture of our students' progress across different areas. For example, across academics, assessments, attendance, behavior, and of course, as we've mentioned, social emotional needs. With the SEL surveys that Panorama provides, we can measure our students' social emotional well-being, and through its research-based SEL lessons, we can utilize these through teachers, counselors, social workers, and really any other staff, and so that we can implement these whether it's face-to-face or remotely. In addition, Panorama is also will help high schools keep track of their college and career readiness data and get a full picture of students' progress towards graduation. And based programs that Panorama is partnered with that we will be able to utilize are programs such as Second Step, Character Strong, Move This World, and several others that they've partnered up to create this full service.
Part of our process with Southwest Cares after vetting this, we rolled this out to our principals, let them demo it. We had several planning sessions with them, and they're all on board. Three of them. What's beneficial is that it's a one-stop shop, as Dr. Verso mentioned, where you don't have to pull data from different programs that are not compatible with our team student information system. So Panorama was an awarded vendor for our RFPs from CNI for student educational software and professional development. So that goes through July 2023. And the annual cost for this program for the RTI and the SEL modules will be $98,840. We're looking to have a 3-year contract, and we were able to save about $21,000 by going with a 3-year contract. So we are recommending at this time that the board approve the purchase of Panorama Education, RTI, and SEL modules at an annual cost of $98,840 for the 3-year period.
I just have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said that you said the majority mostly of the principals. What were the concerns of the principals that didn't want it?
I don't think we had any.
So
The
it
ones that
was all of them.
in the sessions we had, not all of them participated. That's why I mentioned.
Okay.
This. But that's the difference. As being a former principal, you have to pull data from different places,
Mhm.
and it doesn't always correlate with data.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant that all the principals had the a chance to voice and some
They
said no,
did.
but,
Some were able to participate, some were out on vacation.
Okay.
They were able to.
so no negative thing from the principals. Okay.
I have a question. So all the programs, all the different programs, they're all gonna get downloaded into this one?
What
Is that-
happens is they import our student information, the team data, the demographics, and they're able to incorporate that from Teams, which is Frontline. And they're able to pull that data where we can do reports based on it may be at risk for something or the any indicators that come up. There's also surveys that we can use to bring kids back, find out what type of social emotional needs or support they're going to need.
Right.
And that's something that will allow us to track the student, develop monitoring plans, and also intervention plans where we can support them in-house, but also we need to refer them outside.
And we're gonna want all the kids managed. All the kids are gonna be
The goal is
looked at
correct.
through here.
And we started this process when we were online, when we were virtual, started getting data
Okay.
to find out, what are some of the issues we need to start planning.
Another neat feature too is that we don't have to look at the various areas like attendance, behavior, and academics in isolation. We can look at them all together, and we can even make connections, with all those areas, and look at how maybe one is impacting the other. How is attendance impacting maybe academics or behavior? How is behavior and how are behavior and the student's social emotional needs impacted or connected or things like that. So it allows us to look at all areas together rather than in isolation.
Okay.
I move.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item E.
Yes, so item E is, we're going to ask the board to approve a vocal ensemble level 4 course. So we have this course all the way from 1, 2, 3. So I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Garcia. who's going to, for us.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am.
Great. Board members and Dr. Versto senior staff. This course has been already established previously, but for whatever reason, it was established with only levels 1, 2, and 3. There is a need that eventually our students that are seniors will need to take this vocal ensemble course, and the level 4 does not exist at this time. So basically a technicality, making sure that we have all levels available to all students.
I move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item F.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, item F is, this is the information that we brought when we had conversation, it was early in the spring, about the need to go back to a 7-period day at both of our high schools. And now this evening, we have a high school bell schedule recommendation from each one of our 2 traditional high schools. And so I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Garcia so we can present those high school bell schedules to the board.
Thank you, Dr. Rosso. So in the last years, we've been running with a flexible high school bell schedule. And so along with the high school recommendations, we are bringing not only just the item of information, but it's actually an item of action. Back in May the 19th, we had this discussion with the board. And so now we'd like to present this as an item of action, our high school bell schedule. And we have the lead out available to take us through the item.
Good evening. I wanted to provide an update and ask approval for the Southwest High School and Southwest Legacy High School campus bell schedules. We align the bell schedules with the master schedules for a 7-period day. These bell schedules are for face-to-face instruction on September 8th. I want to thank the high school principals and academic coordinators for their input and collaboration on these schedules. As you saw in the board packet, both schedules have the same start time and end time, but differ on the amount of lunches. For Southwest High School, we have 2, and Southwest Legacy, we have 3. And then also the placement of the career and college prep class. So tonight we are asking for the approval of both bell schedules. Do we have any questions or concerns?
You can see those reflected on your packet page 182 and 183. there's a little variant difference between the two. One of our high schools has 3 lunch periods built in, and one has 2 lunch periods built in, which is the only difference. But other than that, it's pretty reflective of last year, with the exception of not 8 periods.
I move.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Dr. Superintendent, do you have any questions, sir, or anything to add?
No, I know it's hard to meet like this. It's easier to meet in person than via video.
Yes, sir, it is.
Supposed to meet for all virtual, and so I think by social distancing and being able to do the business of the district, I want to thank you. I want to commend the staff. We're all having to learn by doing some things in person and some things with the be frustrating. I want to thank all of you for sticking with that, and thank all of our staff members. There's a lot going on, and we're trying to keep up with it. I can promise you we're not perfect, but definitely we're going to keep chopping at it and make sure that we do our best to serve our kids and always look out for their safety and well-being. That's first and foremost to us. But understanding how important education is, face-to-face education, we get that too. Thank you for your service, and I want to thank all of our staff for everything they do. The ones here tonight, the ones who are out there, and that voice coming from the side.
Anybody have anything else? All right, at 8:30, we go into executive session under permit 551.001-551.146. Everybody ready?
Yes.
All right, we come back into regular session, and it's 20 minutes to 10 o'clock. And we go back to item 7, superintendent, and the first one is superintendent's recommendation on personnel.
I move we approve the superintendent's recommendation on personnel.
I second.
The motion's been made and seconded on the superintendent's recommendation on personnel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, consider possible action concerning possible settlement of action against a special ed hearing officer for the state of Texas.
I move to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and school attorney and direct superintendent of schools attorney to proceed as discussed in closed session concerning settlement of anticipated litigation before a special education hearing officer for the state of Texas.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. What else we got?
That's all we got. I want to thank you for your time. Thank everyone.
Anybody? Might be even past your bedtime. All right, we go home and it's 17 minutes to 10.